What is going on, my specialist? SPC here, and welcome to the first official episode of Tales of a Star Wars Fan. For today's guest, we have a very special guest. We have Connor from Not That Bad, a movie podcast. Connor, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be on the first episode. Like to be on a ground floor anywhere, just fantastic. So I appreciate you inviting me on.
Oh, yeah, man. Also, guys, if you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. Hope you guys hit that subscribe button. For all you returning subscribers, this is the guy who did all of my logos for the rebrand. So definitely make sure you guys give him some love for that. He's been playing it off like it's whatever. But again, man, I said it off air. I messaged you 100 times. I'm going to just say it again, man. Again, I just really appreciate what you've done because it's been so well received. People have loved it, and like I just have a newfound ambition to want to keep going and keep doing things. So,
oh man, hearing that means the world. Happy to help where I can. Happy to do what I can. You make great stuff, and at the end of the day, no matter what you change about the wrapping of the channel, as long as you stay doing the stuff that you do, people are going to keep liking it. And people are going to keep following. So, I'm excited to be a part of the history of SPC Unleashed in some way. And I hope it means nothing but good stuff from here. So very happy to help where I could.
Well, again, I really, really appreciate it. So guys, the way this is going to work, obviously, again, bring on a guest. I'm only going to ask 5 pretty simple but easy questions. You guys can take as long as you need to answer the question. You guys can even bring up some extra stuff if you want. So, I guess, Connor, we're going to start off with the first question for you. What first got you into Star Wars?
So it's funny. So I was born around the time that the prequels were coming out, the first of them around the Phantom Menace time. So those movies were sort of made for my generation. So it'd be an easy answer to say that, but it's actually not true. I grew up on this box set right here, this original Star Wars trilogy VHS box set. This was present at both my parents' house as a kid, my grandparents' house, and my great grandmother on my dad's side, who I was extremely close to, spent so much time at her house. I watched these so much. I pretty much wore out every VCR that I came in contact with these copies of the movie. But it was helped by the fact that the prequels were coming out through my childhood. So, here are these movies that already mean a lot to me, that are already making me happy. And there's new ones, and they're for my generation of people. So it was sort of just this combination of like really loving the environment around me while growing up on the original trilogy, and then growing up with the prequel trilogy. That just, it's why Star Wars means so much to me today.
Okay. So I guess, how often did you actually watch those VCRs?
Oh man, dude, I watched these a lot as a kid. There was several things that I grew up on that I just watched to death. I think these 3 movies, I would say several times a month probably. I was popping in at least one of them. And yeah, I would say probably for like a good chunk of time, several times a month, I would bug my parents into putting it on. Maybe wouldn't finish it every time, but I'd try to get through it. And I think one of the tapes in the original, see, I got this much later. I had to, obviously VHS went out of style. I didn't get that memo, unfortunately. So I went out and bought these. But the ones from when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure I wore through the copy of A New Hope in that mix. I think by the time we were done with it, the middle of that movie, if you watched VHS tapes too much, you'll know this. Like you can wear through the tape. And I'm pretty sure I did somewhere in the middle of the movie. It just got a little screwed up. So I watched it about that much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could willingly say that was me with Jurassic Park. Like,
yeah.
I could not tell you how many times I've watched that film, and I still to this day, man, like watching it even digital, DVD, whatever. Like the magic is still there. I can still rewatch it numerous times and never get bored. Still be excited at the same parts of when the T-Rex comes out, when the Raptors are chasing everybody. Like it's I don't really know how to describe it, man. It's just movie magic that I love it.
That's a perfect way of describing it. Honestly, it's movie magic. To have a movie that you could watch, like literally, if somebody told me I had to watch the Star Wars trilogy every single week, I would never get tired of it. I would watch it every single week for the rest of my life, and I would die a happy man. So I would. It's great when you can have a movie like that, and I'm glad Star Wars is that for me.
Yes, I definitely know what that's like because I feel the same way. I could I could just watch the entire saga like every week for the rest of my life, and I would probably not get bored of it.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say the whole saga, but I could definitely say most of the movies, especially the ones that I grew up on. Those are ones that I could literally. I mean, I could best day, worst day, anything. If you tell me we're watching Star Wars, I'm happy. So um, it, it stuck with me from childhood.
All right. So second question: what's your favorite thing about Star Wars?
I thought a lot about this question, and here's what I think I'm going to say, and I hope it's not too much of a cop out of an answer, but I think it's just how I feel watching these movies. It brings me Star Wars. I think is such a nostalgia fueled property. That's why I think so many people love Star Wars or continue to get into it because it continues to come out for new generations every time a generation shows up, and it resonates with that generation so heavily that it just gives you this amazing feeling to go back and revisit these movies. Full disclosure, I'm one of those absolute geeks that cries during these movies. I do. I get that feeling. It rushes back to me. Moments in every movie from the original trilogy, moments from two movies of the prequel trilogy, you will just turn and see me in full tears, and it might not even be a moment that makes sense. Like the end of Return of the Jedi, or the in the first movie when the score kicks in with the twin sunsets, or the twin suns on Tatooine. It just The feeling that I get from watching these movies is just so important to me that it's impossible to say like, oh, I really like the stormtroopers or I really like the Force and Jedi's and lightsabers. That's all what helps make it special. But you can't when you can get a movie that makes you feel a certain way, when it makes you feel just happy, it brightens your day every time you think of it, watch it, hear a part of the score. Um, it's hard to not want to bottle that up and sell that because it's the greatest feeling in the world. So that would probably be my favorite thing about Star Wars as a whole, even though there's so much to love about it already.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate with that. I mean, I feel the same way every time I turn The Empire Strikes Back on because it's my favorite Star Wars film. I still remember being 5 years old, sitting on the floor in late winter of 1997 or
Yeah.
1998, I guess it would be, you know, just watching the AT-ATs go up to Hoth and just blow it up. Darth Vader going in and walking through the Rebel base. I mean, that just every time, and even unpopular opinion, but I feel that same way every time I watch The Force Awakens. Like I just get all those moments I had when I watched it in theaters because it's still my favorite theater experience I've ever had. That's probably the biggest reason why I hold it in such high regards compared to a lot of other people. So, but it works for me every time I rewatch the film, man. Like when Ray, Finn, and BB-8 are heading towards the Falcon, that score kicks in. I just get so excited. Every time
Yeah.
I see Han Solo get stabbed in the chest by his own son, I tear up and cry. And the ending, man, I don't know what it is about that ending, but I'm like you. I tear up and
Yeah.
I clap because I'm like, man, I love this movie so much. And obviously, I know in terms of sequels, it's hard to say you like something from the sequels because the way we are nowadays with Star Wars is a little hit and miss for a lot of people. So but I boldly will say it. I think The Force Awakens is flawless. I love it. It's probably my favorite score of every single film, period.
Oh, nice.
I know, but yeah, that's just how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, so we had the conversation about like we've talked before about thoughts on the sequels, and full disclosure for anybody who's never heard my opinion on that, I'm not a fan of them. They're not for me. I don't really like the direction that was taken with the characters and some of the movies and the decisions that were made. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I can relate sort of to what you're saying with the Force Awakens. That's the one that I came away liking the most. It's the first. So this is actually kind of funny. I, as a kid, don't recall. I may have seen it now talking to my parents, but I don't recall a theatrical experience with any of the prequels. We were big home media people, so we bought the DVDs and everything every time anything came out. But I don't really remember seeing it in theaters. If I did, I don't know. But just really sitting there in the moment. With my now wife at the theaters when Star Wars came up on the screen, and I was really paying attention to it. And at this point, Star Wars means what it still does to me now. You know, like I was in the theater, and I remember vividly Star Wars coming up on the screen, and I just felt this overwhelming rush of emotion. And I look around, and there is like 10 grown men in my theater crying, and I was like, this is incredible. So even though my opinions on the sequels have soured since my theatrical experiences, that first experience does still mean a lot to me, and B, it means a lot to me to hear somebody like you say that. It's somebody, because that's what this is all about. Your opinions on the sequels have nothing to do with mine, and hearing you say that it means that much to you just makes me happy, because it's Star Wars meaning something to somebody. If I don't care what movie it is, The Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite Star Wars movie. I hope to God there's somebody out there that feels the same way about that movie that I do about the original trilogy, because that just means that's one more person that Star Wars means something to. And that does not affect me negatively in any way. It just makes me happy that somebody likes what I like, in a way.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing I've never really grasped about the fandom, as to why, like, you can't have your own opinion and why we have to get attacked. I mean, again, especially me, because I've been saying it for years. I do love the sequels as a whole. I like the sequels more than the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, the original trilogy for me, where a lot of people still agree, I will say it's story wise, character wise, everything. It's still the best out of all the films. But
right.
It's just I like the characters. I like the planets. I like the moments. Again, especially the Force Awakens. Like, yeah, is it almost beat for beat retread of A New Hope? Yeah, I've never not said that. I mean, I always have to say too. Believe me, I understand why people don't like the sequels. I do, but
Right.
they work for me. I've loved pretty much everything Disney has put out, and obviously certain shows haven't really grasped for a lot of people. Like, I know a lot of people were disappointed with Kenobi. It's like a 4-star for me. I still really enjoy it and
Me
like
too.
it.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, I agree with pretty much everybody. I was not a big fan of the character of Reva. Like, I just don't think they handled her character very well. If she was completely out of the show, I really think it would be a lot better.
And she was such a good actress too. I felt so bad for her, you know, like she could have really been utilized really well. I don't have as big of a problem with her as many people do. But I feel that if I could, honestly, and I hate to hijack this question, but I do want to say, like, you know, favorite things about Star Wars out aside, like, I'll say one of my least favorite things about Star Wars is the fact that it's exactly what you just described there. There's this large majority of fans who just love Star Wars, and they just want to talk to people about Star Wars, and they do it very civilly, and they don't throw death threats out there, or don't, you know, kick people out of forums for liking the Phantom Menace, which has happened to me a few times. But my least favorite thing about it is that loud minority group of Star Wars fans that just they're a minority in the group of fans as a whole, but they're so loud and vocal that it makes it feel like everybody that's a Star Wars fan acts like that. You know, like that Star Wars fans sent death threats to Ahmed Best, or that Star Wars fans sent death threats to Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. And it's like, no, crazy people did who happen to like some Star Wars movies. And I just wish that I wish that people could realize more that like, and I think some of it does stem from the same thing we talked about with how these movies make you feel. If the original trilogy makes you feel amazing, and then you watch movies trying to get that feeling again, you're going to be kind of desperate for it. And if you don't get it, I get being upset with that. I just wish people would be a little bit more level-headed sometimes in the Star Wars community and just realize that, look, at the end of the day, we all love the same thing, and we're all part of a community that ultimately there's still a large group of people who look down on Star Wars, who think it's just sci-fi. It's just dumb sci-fi movies. I remember being in high school on a field trip, and there was like a little TV on the bus that we were on. And so they put on a DVD of Return of the Jedi. And there were people audibly like laughing and saying like, what is this? Like, this is stupid. What is this? Or making fun of like a coach that quotes Yoda. And it's like, look, there are people out there who don't know Star Wars exists, wish Star Wars didn't exist. So I think being a part of a community is more important than being right in something that's impossible to be right about. It's an opinion. Yes. And that's my least favorite thing about talking Star Wars, is that I do feel like my initial conversation with somebody is very much walking on eggshells until I know they're not somebody who's going to try to burn my house down for not liking a movie or for liking a movie, so it's an interesting thing. But I'm curious, have you observed that same thing in your Star Wars fandom?
I have, because I know like right around when The Last Jedi came out, like I left the theater, I didn't really know how to feel. Like I was just like, I liked it, but I didn't like it. I went to work the following couple days later, because a lot of the guys I worked with back then, they were Star Wars fans. And there was especially one guy, he was extremely like negative. Like if you said one positive thing about the film, like even one day randomly a couple months later, I'm like, I really want to watch Last Jedi again. I don't know, I just have that itch. Like I want to know how I truly feel. He's like, oh, so you want to just put yourself through misery and torture? I'm like, no, I want to watch a movie because I want to actually get my opinion on it, because I don't know, I was just around it too much. So like I think I fell into the camp for a little bit of like, yeah, don't like this movie, Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. And I just really sat down and I thought about it. I'm like, no, he made the movie he wanted to make. He just didn't like the direction Force Awakens went to, so he decided to go his own path and do his own thing. And I'll say it's a bold move, and I respect the guy for going for it. Obviously, it's one of the two most divisive films now within the latest string of Disney films. But yeah, I've seen it firsthand. Yes, I've also watched it with a lot of like the Star Wars YouTubers that I like to watch.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
I know a big one was Star Wars Theory. Like he boldly says he hates Last Jedi, and again, I understand why. Believe me, I truly do. And even too, like when the Rise of Skywalker came out, he was very like, oh yeah, I loved it. And now you go back and try to find that video and it's completely gone.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, and that's the thing, right? Like that attitude of just like, you have to be right with it. Like, yeah, you have every right to go back and be in misery if that's what you want to do. You have every right. If you don't like Last Jedi and you want to go back home and watch it, you have every right to do it. And I don't know. It's like, I just wish more people would realize that insecurity with your opinion does not mean you have to think it's right. That's not the way to swing yourself backwards. Just feel okay about it. Feel okay about your fandom. Nothing that comes out after is going to ruin what you already love. So even though I don't like what the sequels did, guess what? I can just pretend they don't exist if I want to, and I'll be just fine. And there are people who want to pretend those are the only movies in Star Wars universe that exist. I talked to somebody who's in a younger age group than me. And they were saying how, they don't like any Star Wars movies, but they like the sequels that came out that Disney made. And I was, all power to you. You love something that I now love. If we both go to a tattoo shop, we can both get a tattoo that says Star Wars on our bodies, and we will both be representing the same thing. We will just be representing different aspects of that thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. So my favorite thing about Star Wars is the emotions, and my least favorite thing about Star Wars is the emotions in a weird way.
I mean, again, man, I totally get it. Like the old saying, nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.
Yes, I always love hearing that because there's nothing that's more true than that. There's only three things that are inevitable in this world: it's death, taxes, and Star Wars fans being upset. So,
yes, I definitely agree with that one there. So I guess up next, who is your favorite Star Wars character?
oh, this was really, really tough. Um, because I like so many characters, and I think it's hard too because like you have to like do you break it down? Like do you break it down to like original trilogy, prequels, sequels, extended universe, legends? Like how do you break this down? If I had to really pick overall, I would say a slight edge to Luke. I just think his story from beginning to end in the original trilogy is so important to why I like those movies so much that he's got to be in there. I also love, like Vader / Anakin and Yoda. But like those are two characters that are just one of them's just really cool, and who doesn't love a good puppet Yoda? Um, and the other one is Star Wars. Arguably the story of Star Wars from beginning to end, the way that the story is written is the story of Anakin Skywalker. And so it's hard to find a balance of which character I like most. I think at the end of the day, though, it just comes down to the fact that when I saw Anakin pop up on the Obi-Wan show, I was excited. But when I saw Luke pop up on The Mandalorian, I was in tears. So I was like, yeah, one of those character means more to me. And that was who it was. So.
Yep, I definitely agree with you on that Luke scene. Yeah, when he popped up, man, I was like, "There's no way, they're not gonna do this."
I kept saying it too. I was like, my wife was laughing at me because my voice got shaky. I was like, "There's no way, there's no way." And then as soon as the hood came down, I was like, "Oh my god!" Or I think it was when I saw the green lightsaber, I was like, "No, there's no way." And then they showed the glove closer, and I was like, "That's." Oh my god, that was when it hit me. And so yeah, that was. It's hard to pinpoint a favorite character in Star Wars because there's so many good characters. Even in Legends, which are no longer canon, Solo is a fantastic character. I love that character so much. In current extended universe stuff, it's hard not to like Thrawn being brought back. Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan for the prequel trilogy is like, that's the character that so many people resonate with those movies with. It's why he got his own show. Even if I had to pick one for the sequels, I could even do that. I think Rey is a great character. I don't love everything that happened with her, but it warmed my heart to see, when I saw that Kathleen Kennedy, the reception she got at Star Wars Celebration this year, I was really worried about Daisy. And then when Daisy came out and they gave her a standing ovation, it made me very happy. I'm excited to see what they do with that. But I would say on the whole, if I had to pick one character in all of Star Wars, if you said you get rid of everybody else except for one, it's hard not to say Luke Skywalker. I know it's generic, but that's what I'm gonna have to roll with.
It's still a good one because just his story besides Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker. He's got one of the best progressions as a character, and obviously, again, for you, obviously, it didn't work the way they represented Luke. I'm sure in The Last Jedi,
right?
But for me, like just seeing kind of like obviously I'd still like to see more of what actually happened, between Return of the Jedi and what led to his decision to try to kill his own nephew.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard not to like Luke Skywalker though, because for a lot of people, like he is the Jedi that they grew up watching, especially older fans of the original trilogy.
Right.
And again, like for guys like you and me watching that season 2 finale of The Mandalorian and seeing a young Luke Skywalker and hearing Mark Hamill's voice from back then and just watching the things he does and how powerful he's gotten. And it's like, it's hard not to get emotional. It's hard not to be like that is Luke Skywalker. Like, wow.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that's why I got so like why I got so emotional watching that scene is because it's like for years you think like for me I grew up in my like younger years and then even like as the Mandalorian was starting with the books that are no longer in canon, and you read about Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi and you just wish like, man, I wish just one time we could see that on screen. And then when the sequels were announced, I was like, ooh, this is going to be good, we're going to see it. And then we did and we didn't. I think even you, like as a sequel fan, can admit like we got to see his capabilities, but not everybody, including myself, dug how they went with the character, including Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was not a big fan of it. However, getting that glimpse of like not old man Luke, not literally a copy of Return of the Jedi, but like an evolution of what he was in Return of the Jedi was like one of the coolest things as a Star Wars fan to get to experience. And don't get me wrong, like Vader was very much that way too. Like when Rogue One came out and we got to see that amazing Vader scene, I didn't get choked up or anything, but I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I was so excited to see like, this is the Vader everybody's scared of, because he's not all that scary in the original trilogy. He's just by then, it's a little bit different, but he's known as like this feared character. And it's like, okay, like he's a scary guy, but then you see that and you're like, oh, he's terrifying. This is amazing. So it was nice to see that for Luke. And now I want to ask you, if I can throw it back to you, who's your favorite character?
I usually bounce between 3, but I would say honestly, like 7 out of 10 times for me, it's gonna be Yoda. Like
Yoda makes sense.
I can willingly say like just life in general, my personal life, obviously outside of doing this. Yoda has actually helped me a lot in life. Like just for a lot of people, just little lines that he says and like the riddles and the way that he talks, like
Yeah.
do or do not, there is no try. Like I can't tell you how many times in a day I say that to myself. Like, and even the biggest one, because recently over the last year, I made a career change and I've been living off of the line from weirdly enough, we keep coming back to it, The Last Jedi. Failure, the greatest teacher of all. It is like I literally can't tell you with that line too. Like I live by that. Even to like his line when after he takes the X-wing out of the swamp and Luke goes over and he's like, I don't believe it. And he's like, that is why you fail. Like,
yeah,
powerful moments like that. Like literally just a small little creature that you don't know what he is or anything like that. And he just has made such a huge impact just on my life personally. So I'd probably go with Yoda more than I would the other two. So
good stuff. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, he said a lot of things that just it's not just good advice for the characters. It's like he's talking through the screen, and it's when a character can do that in a movie, I don't think a character has done it better than Yoda in any movie. I think he's one of the best written versions of the wise man character that I've seen in a film. So it's hard not to love Yoda. Like I said, he's one of my favorite characters as well. More so for the puppet Yoda moments than the CGI Yoda moments, but I like my CGI Yoda a little bit too. So yeah, that's a good pick. I like to hear that. Yoda's an awesome character.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they hate Yoda.
I think it's pretty unanimous that he's a great character. I mean, how can you hate him? Exactly. If you like Star Wars remotely, you like Yoda. I mean, it has to be.
Or if you're a new age Star Wars fan, and whether you're a child, now you like Baby Yoda.
It was a way to, I guess kind of continue to bring that species into everything. I think it's funny. I just watched something recently about George Lucas talking about creating Yoda. And he was just like, when he came up with the character, he was like, I don't know what race he is. I don't know what species he is. I don't know anything. I just know his name is Yoda. And he's a very wise old Jedi. And I was like, that's the crux of the character. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else because he's so well written and has this mystique about him that it's just like, you don't need to know anything else. What is it? Yaddle, I think, is the character of the female character from his species in the prequel trilogy, and then of course Grogu is also Yoda's species, and like we could have never gotten that, and I still would have been fine. Like that's cool. It's cool that we have that stuff, but that could have been left alone, and I would have been cool with it.
I mean, there's a part of me that like wants to know what he is or what species he's from or the planet, but
right,
the mystery just makes Yoda like that much more of an interesting character to me.
Agreed. Like I know now that it's defined in Star Wars lore, and I just don't care to look at it. It's inconsequential to my love for the character. There are characters I want to learn a lot more about, and why I've read so many Legends books as I have. But he's just not a character that I need to know everything about. You know everything you need to know about him, in my opinion, from the movies and the things he says and does. So he's one of the most straightforward characters, I think. But it's funny, like when there's mystery around somebody, a lot of times your inclination is just to want to know everything about them. But with Yoda, it's like he kind of just wears everything out on his sleeve, and you know, if you want to learn more about him, there's information out there, and you know you're going to. I think 9 times out of 10 though, people are just like, yeah, you know, surface level, I'm cool with what we got.
Yep,
we don't
need
a Yoda origin.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be cool to see, because I know there's that show, the Acolyte, coming out here next year, and
yeah,
I know the High Republic era. I know Yoda is supposed to be in there somewhere, so I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what they can do with it. We'll see. I don't have an issue with it at all. I definitely never wanted like a Obi-Wan Kenobi style show for Yoda. You know, like that's just not something I want. But if Yoda's a crucial character, like, yeah, give me more Yoda. I love Yoda.
Yes, I miss. I mean, I'll say it. I like Yoda in the Clone Wars show. I do think with what they do with the character, it works for the most part. I just not seeing that live action puppet anymore, man. Like the last time we saw it was in the Phantom Menace way back in 1999, and even now they remastered it, so now we have a digital Yoda in, whether you call it the special edition or whatever you want to call it. So
yeah.
it kind of kills the mystique a little bit, even though I can say the puppet design of episode 1, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but
yeah, you know, it's funny when I remember like having this opinion that Puppet Yoda did look worse in Phantom Menace, but then I remember the first time I watched the Blu-ray and it wasn't Puppet Yoda anymore, and I was like, I don't care what it looks like. Give me Puppet Yoda back. Give me Puppet Yoda back right now. I don't hate CGI Yoda, by the way. I think it was necessary to do the things they wanted to do with this character in those movies to take that progression. I just wish they would have taken more of an approach of making it. I don't think they could have made it look exactly like a puppet, but they departed, I think, from that look so much that you know it's Yoda still, but it doesn't have the same charm to it. It doesn't have the same look to it. So I was actually really happy in The Last Jedi when there was like a little puppet looking Yoda. You know, it meant a lot to see that again. So at the very least, that's like my favorite thing about those sequels, honestly, is that they gave us, I don't know if it was actually a puppet or not, but it looked like one. And that's what I appreciated about that. So yeah, I'm not going to shit on the prequels for doing what they did. I'm just saying, like, leave episode 1 alone. There was not a puppet, or there was not a CGI Yoda in that movie. You put one in there, take it back. Okay. There are takebacks. You should do it.
Yes. Oh man. Like, yeah, when he popped up in Last Jedi and I heard that laugh that we heard. I was like, yes, oh my God, they're doing it. Oh, Skywalker, missed you, I have.
Yes.
Like, oh man, I feel like a 5-year-old again watching Yoda, man.
I felt the same way. Mm-hmm.
So I guess getting into the next question, what is your favorite Star Wars moment?
So I thought a lot about this. There is an honorable mention, but I think my favorite Star Wars moment, I have to say, is the final celebration at the end of Return of the Jedi. I know that's a weird one because there are so many great Star Wars moments. The reveal of Vader being Luke's father, and my runner-up would personally be the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi. I just love the story significance of every movement. There's a purpose behind every single swipe of those lightsabers, and just the story of it all, the drama of it all. I love that moment so much. But thinking on it, like the end of Return of the Jedi, where we have the wrap up for these characters, especially now that I don't resonate as much with the sequel trilogy and where they took those characters, that moment means so much more to me now because that's my goodbye for these characters. And it's such a special moment. I think the original cut of the movie had like that Yub Nub song, which I like for nostalgia purposes, but I really love what they did with the 1997 version of the special edition that came out, where they kept Sebastian Shaw as the actor for Anakin, showing up as a Force ghost, but there was that new song to it. It's such an emotional song, it's like just so happy, it's so joyous, and we have all these characters we've watched them go through hell. We practically watched Luke grow up and Leia become this distinguished character throughout the series, which she was in the first one, but everybody just becomes exactly who they were meant to be in Star Wars, and that all culminates in this one moment where they're celebrating with these adorable little bear creatures, and Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles is there. And just that whole scene just feels so good to me, and perfectly captures what I love about Star Wars so much, of just like that feeling that it gives me, that I had to pick that as my number one, even though there's so many great moments in Star Wars.
I mean, that is a really good moment because, I mean, even if you think about it too, that's essentially the only time that I can think of. I guess I don't know. I'm a little rusty out lately on my Star Wars stuff because I haven't watched the movies very much here over the last few years. But I think that's the only time that all of our characters are together at once. We have, the original three with Luke, Han, Leia. You get Chewbacca. You get the two droids. You get Lando, and again you get Wedge. I mean, you get all the characters together, and I mean, you feel great just watching, like you said, basically them going through hell, everything they've gone through with the Empire, like beating them, and they're all just finally happy. They're just there in the moment together, just celebrating life.
Well, yeah, to me, it's like it's the perfect end to a perfect trilogy. I consider Star Wars a perfect trilogy, and seeing it start where it started and end where it ended, it's special. The way that it ends, it to me was just, this is exactly what I wanted to see from this movie. And you know, as I grow older, I have more of an appreciation for it. I have the special edition copies on VHS. Also, there's a fantastic Star Wars community that's been preserving these cuts, these older cuts of the movies, with projects like Project 4K 83. There's Project 4K 97, which has taken original film reels from the theaters of the 97 movies and putting them in 4K so that anybody can watch them. These projects have meant like the world to me because, I love my VHS copies, don't get me wrong, but the fact that I can just like go to my TV and, plug in a drive and watch, an older version of this movie without as many edits, in full 4K is like, that's a dream come true. So, that moment is one that's really special to me to like go back and revisit. Sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I'll just find that song on iTunes and I'll just throw it on. It just makes me so happy, and I'm glad that even people who don't like Return of the Jedi do kind of like that ending, which helps my enjoyment a little bit.
See, that's for me. I mean, I like Return of the Jedi. Like, I would say it's probably up there in my top 5 favorite Star Wars films.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't understand why people don't really like or resonate with it very much. Like, I have a buddy, he lives in London. He's from London, and that's his favorite Star Wars film is Return of the Jedi. And kind of ironic too, since obviously, we just got done celebrating the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, which
Right.
I sadly did not get to go see in theaters because I've never got to see any of the original trilogy films in theaters. But
Same.
one day I will make it there. I will go and plant firmly, and I will watch the original trilogy in theaters one day. Like, that's just on my bucket list in general. But I just don't know why people don't really like it as much as the other two. Unpopular opinion, I think the first one is the weakest of the trilogy. That's just me though. But because when I was a kid, man, when I would watch the original trilogy, like I would watch all three, and then when it came time to watch the prequels and then the originals, like I want to say 6 out of 10 times I would skip A New Hope because again, as a kid, like I just thought it was boring, didn't work for me. I didn't like the lightsaber duel between Vader and Obi-Wan.
Right.
Obviously, I'm older now. I definitely appreciate the film more. I definitely do like it a lot more, and I will thank Rogue One because I think Rogue One kind of helped me get into it a little bit more and like it a lot more. But I guess to me personally, I just personally think it's the weaker of the trilogy.
I don't get the hatred for Return of the Jedi. I'll save my ranking after I talk about my favorite Star Wars movie of the top three. I definitely will not rank all the movies because I could do so, but I don't want you or me to die. So I will not do that. But what I'll say is this: like I don't get anybody hating either of these three movies. Honestly, I mean, I could get not resonating with one of them. You know, like you said, it's my wife is the same way with A New Hope. You know, it just doesn't connect as much. But I don't I could not reasonably see anybody walking up. If somebody came up to me and they were like, "Hey, I hate one of the original trilogy Star Wars movies," I'd be like, "You're out of your mind." You're out of your mind. Gabe has been pushing me to do It's That Bad and cover Return of the Jedi. And because he does not like that movie. And I was like, I don't know that we can be friends anymore. I don't know.
What?
I don't know that I'm going to quit the show. No, I'm not going to quit the show. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because of how these movies make me feel. I just don't see that perspective. I don't see how somebody could watch any of these and say, they just don't feel like movies that evoke that strong of an opinion. You know, like they don't take super huge chances. They kind of just set up what the franchise was going to be. And if it doesn't resonate with you, I totally appreciate that. I even appreciate it if you hate them. Like, I just don't see how you could. That's any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with that. Again, I've never seen anybody like flat out say like, yeah, the original trilogy, yeah, no, that I don't like those.
Right.
Wait, what now?
Yeah, I've never heard anybody say they don't like any of them. If somebody told me they don't like any of them and they think they're all bad movies, I would question their opinions later on. But you know, I would not judge them. I would just say, you know, if they recommended a movie to me or told me that a movie was bad, I would take it with a pinch of salt. Maybe not even a grain, but a pinch of salt.
Okay. And then, of course, obviously, the most important question of this podcast: what is your favorite Star Wars film?
Unfortunately, I will not be breaking any molds here. I will not be surprising anybody here. I think The Empire Strikes Back is a perfect movie. It is my favorite Star Wars movie, and it is my favorite movie as a whole. There is not a film out there that I like more than Empire Strikes Back. You know, when I really think about movies as a whole, I do. So I do this thing with my rating of movies where I'll give it like a star rating, but then I'll also give it like a score out of 100. Because I think stars can be kind of limiting. You know, if you give like a movie a 4.5, what does that really mean? You know, there's got to be a scale somewhere in there. So I very, very rarely give a movie a perfect 100 out of 100. But this is a movie that I do that for. I could say so many good things about it. I can't say one bad thing about Empire Strikes Back, not one. And if anybody even, you know, there are movies that come close, don't get me wrong. But this to me feels so special, feels so much like what Star Wars is. And it invokes so much of that emotion in me that it's just the perfect movie. So I'm going to go with The Empire Strikes Back. And because I'm first on this show, the first guest, I'll be trend setting. I have a feeling. I'm feeling a lot of people are going to be saying that. I'm just glad I'm the first one to come on and say it, because then I'm not biting off anybody. that said, though, I'm biting off a lot of people. I think most people resonate most with that movie, whether they're Star Wars fans or not. So that's what I'm going to roll with, and that's the perfect film for me.
I definitely highly agree with you too, man. Like that is my favorite out of the entire saga is Empire Strikes Back, because it was the first Star Wars film I ever watched. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
I again just remember being 5 years old, sitting on the floor watching the Attack on Hoth, and I was just looked at my dad, because my dad's the one who introduced me to Star Wars, and it was kind of weird when I first started watching Star Wars, because it was, I want to say it was like late '98, and they just like a week later after my dad just introduced me to the trilogy, because we watched Empire Strikes Back, and then a week later my dad, I don't know how he got them, I don't know if he rented them, bought them, found them, but we sat down the following weekend, watched the entire original trilogy, and literally the next day they released the Phantom Menace trailer, and it's weird. Like it's like everything just kind of like intertwined for like my fandom, and again, my fandom has exploded into total over proportions for some people. Like, because I will say it, like for me, Star Wars is a very personal love for me. Like, because unfortunately, not to get all like sad and depressing here, but my uncle died in '87, so I never got to meet him. He died like 6 years before I was even a thought at all. So but he got to go see all the original trilogy films in theaters opening day. He was a huge Star Wars fan. So in a way, the best way I can really word it is like my love for Star Wars is for him, but also obviously for myself, because it's weirdly like the best way I can connect with him in, the nether regions of the Force, I guess we can say, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just my way of being close to him, like, because he obviously not here no more, so he didn't get to go see the prequels, he didn't get to go see the sequels, he hasn't got to watch The Mandalorian, all that. So I mean, this is just kind of my big way of like honoring him, and that's why another reason I wanted to do this specific podcast, because like everybody's got a different story of how they got introduced to Star Wars, and for some people it's personal, for some people it's just a movie they just turned on one day and their fandom just completely exploded. But I can say, like, I don't care how old I am, I'm gonna be a fan of Star Wars till the day I take my last breath on this planet, and I just love it. Like I said, it's a personal love for me in regards to why I'm such a gigantic fan of this franchise.
Dude, I feel that when you said that, man, like I sort of like I couldn't help but smile, because that's part of why I love the original trilogy so much, and why I'm so passionate about the changes. Like 1997 and stuff, like those still feel nostalgic to me. So like that's fine. But like when they started putting like Hayden Christensen in there and stuff, it's like I get why people like that. So I'm not upset at anybody who says they like Hayden Christensen being at the end of Return of the Jedi, or the Emperor being in Empire Strikes Back. But what I will say is that when I watch any of these three, or like I have the Project 4K 83 and 77, and I'm going to be getting 4K 80 as soon as my computer lets me. But what's special about that to me is like I loved being at my great grandparents' house when I was a kid. My great grandfather died in 2001. I didn't get to know him too much. He had Parkinson's. So by the time I was born, he really couldn't talk to me or anything. But my great grandmother was one of the most important people in my life. And so I spent so many hours down in her basement watching two things: VHS tapes of wrestling that were ripped right from pay-per-views or whatever, which I still have in my possession to this day, and Star Wars. And I just get transported back into that basement with the wood paneling walls and the 70s fireplace and the disgusting, ugly 70s couches. And, but there's this feeling that gives you, like that was the happiest moment of my life at that time. I was in heaven sitting on this floor with my little Star Wars action figures, most of which, again, I still have, and watching something on the screen that I just loved so much. And, even if I didn't get to finish the movie, it was still important for me to turn it on and sit there and watch it. And talk about it with people and share that. So I'm the same way. Like I even though my nana wasn't the biggest fan of Star Wars or anything, I just get transported back to that point in time where I'm this little kid sitting in this gigantic basement bar on the floor watching a big TV with a wood grain frame on it. I can see the entire room every time I watch these movies, and it's a personal thing. I think most people who are as fans like we are have that personal connection in some way to Star Wars. Even somebody one time, and I'm not going to say this person's name because I am not friends with them, but I was in a movie group where there was a period of time, believe it or not, that I was actually really championing the sequels. I really liked last year. I watched it in theaters, and I was talking about it, and somebody was sending me death threats on Facebook over it, and they were being really harsh. And I was just sort of responding the way I always do to that. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I hope this has made you feel better. I hope you're okay now. When you actually want to have a conversation about this, get back to me. For now, send as many messages as you want. You're good. And eventually he was like, hey, I'm really sorry about that. I'm really sorry about how I acted. I get really defensive over these movies because it was the last thing that I connected with my dad on before he died. And it's like you immediately start to understand the heavy emotions behind Star Wars and any movie, really, when you realize the connections that people have with them. And it makes me sympathize with people who take stuff like Star Wars too seriously, in my opinion. I think I take it very seriously, but I'm not going to, tell anybody they're wrong for their opinions on Star Wars. But it makes you relate to them more. And so it's a deeply personal trilogy of movies. It's a deeply personal, saga, deeply personal source material, whatever you want to say. And I did promise that I would rank the movies. I actually agree with you. I think that A New Hope is the weakest, even though I think it's a damn near perfect movie. And I would say it's Empire, then Return of the Jedi. I also give Return of the Jedi 5 stars. Full disclosure, just don't put it at a perfect 100. It's almost perfect, and then A New Hope. But I hope nobody takes that the wrong way. I still feel the same way about all these movies is that I couldn't live without any of the three. I need them all. So I agree with you, though. I think it is I think we have the same order of the original trilogy. Then it'd be Empire, Return, then A New Hope.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, like that is why, though, like I'm just such a gigantic fan. That's why I love trying to reach out to people to talk more about Star Wars. Because I mean, like I said, it's the same way with everything. No matter what it is, whether it's you get a different kind of job or a specific movie or maybe even a specific video game or whatever it ends up being, like it in some way, shape, or form, I feel like it's always going to be personal. And again, this is just kind of my way of honoring my uncle again, because again, obviously he's no longer around to enjoy what has come after his untimely passing, but it's just my way of basically being with him, being able to sit there, and whether or not I'm just sitting there enjoying it and I feel like he's just right there watching the film with me or whatever it is, it's just that is why there's only very few people I've ever like said this to, and I know I made a video about it at one point in time talking about why I am such a huge fan of Star Wars, because I do have family members, they're like, why do you like this? This is for children. This is whatever. And,
Yeah.
and like, I flat out told them one day, like, you guys just don't get it. Like, you guys all got to know him. And I brought that up to them and they're like, oh, well, I never looked at it that way. I'm like, well, that's why I am such a huge fan. That's why almost anything I see on Facebook or anything Star Wars related, I will share it, because I'm just such a huge fan, because it's just a big personal for me. Like I can't help it.
And thank you for sharing that to me too, because like I'm somebody who did get to know an uncle growing up, but my uncle passed away and was a big fan of The Simpsons and left that impression on me. And now, like, I would consider The Simpsons one of my favorite. I would consider it my favorite television show of all time. So, like, to have that something that you can connect back with a family member that you either lost too soon or in your case, somebody that very easily could have been an idol figure in your life if they hadn't have been taken away before you had the chance to meet them. I very much feel that way about my great grandfather. I didn't really get to know him as much as I want to, and everything I hear about him, I'm like, man, I really wish I could have spent some time with this guy. Like, I really wish I could have, got to know him a lot better. And there are things in my life that I do align with him for that reason. I may not have known the guy, but you have this connection still, and to have something special as Star Wars, something as easily accessible as Star Wars, to have those feelings about. I mean, it's like you said earlier. I mean, this is movie magic. It's what it's all about. And movies that can capture that are very, very special and should not be taken for granted. So yeah, I mean, this is like the perfect show for something like that. This is I think you'll hear a lot of stories like this from people that come on. You'll hear some people say like, oh yeah, I just turned on the movie one day and my parents really didn't like it. Nobody in my family really liked it, but I just turned it on and I liked it. And, but you're going to get a lot of stories like this where it's like, oh, I really liked it, but I lost somebody who, loved these and now I love them. And, it's weird. There are a lot of movies that could be like this, but I think Star Wars is the one I've heard the most on. It's like, oh, I used to watch that with my father before he passed away, or, oh, my parents took me to see this movie when I was a kid, and now, they're no longer here. So this is what I watch to remember them, or I live a long way from my family, so this makes me think of them. It's like Star Wars has this way of being so personal. It's like transcended being a film series. It's so much more than that. Which is what makes it so special. So, I don't take these opportunities to talk about Star Wars for granted, because it's always special when you can talk about something like this.
Exactly. And I'll feel the same way too when it's my father's time to go. Because I mean, again, he's the one we sat down, we watched every single film together. We watched the original trilogy. He took me to each of the new films, all when they came out, like literally first day, because I always bothered him. I'm like, Dad, we gotta go. And he's like, okay, shut the hell up, we'll go.
Shut up, we're going.
Yes. So I mean, that's also something I hold in high regards to my dad, because he's essentially, I don't want to word it like this, but it's just the only way it's coming to my mind. He's like the replacement for my uncle, but like he's just more of a casual fan, where like my uncle had because I got a bunch of stuff from him when he passed. So he had he had action figures. He had pillowcases, blankets, like all sorts of stuff. And I think that was where I got my first of the original trilogy in a pack, was his original. And unfortunately, I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if they sold it, threw it away. So, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have that anymore. But I mean, I don't really need it. I have the franchise. Again, weirdly enough, I have like my memories. Again, that's why I also hold The Force Awakens in such a high regard, because I'm
absolutely.
If this was how he felt seeing the first film and seeing all the original trilogies in the theaters, like, this is something I'm going to hold. I'm going to hold special till the day it's my time to go as well. But again, that's why I'm such a fan. That's why I decided I wanted to do this and bring people on, because I just love talking Star Wars in general with people, because it means so much to so many people in the world. And it's sad to see how the fan base is, unfortunately, nowadays, where, again, you can't have an opinion, where what we're doing now is a very rare occasion where we can disagree on things, still be civil, still be friends. You're not sitting here screaming back and forth at each other, or sending death threats and stuff like that. That to me is not fandom. Like, that's just childish.
No, it's being Stan from the Eminem song. It's like you can be a fan, and I think the problem in anything in the world is when you start thinking your opinions are fact. And Star Wars is no different to that, but I think with all the emotions involved in Star Wars, it can easily get out of hand. We've seen it time and time again. How many actors have come out to say that they, became depressed after doing Star Wars because of the fan reaction to them? It's a long list. Like, it's not just like one person, it's like Jake Lloyd, Ahmed Best, even when the original trilogy was happening, Anthony Daniels was somebody who caught a lot of flack because people don't want humor in their Star Wars sometimes, and so when C-3PO is being a humorous character, people don't always like that. And recently with the sequel trilogy, it was like almost everybody that was involved with those movies got a ton of just abuse hurled at them from Star Wars fans, especially I think her name was Kelly Tran, who played oh God, what was her character's name?
Rose
Yes, Rose. So Rose caught a ton of hate. John Boyega had racist comments hurled at him. Oscar Isaac was probably the one who escaped least scathed. I mean, poor Daisy Ridley was just, imagine getting this role of a lifetime and into a reason that you may not get a major role again. I'm glad they cast her in an upcoming trilogy. And she gets another shot at it. But all of those actors caught a ton of flack for those movies, and the directors too. And it's just like, look, you have every right to not like something, but that's why I think shows like this are so important, because, I quite literally I had a, big smile across my face as you were talking about your love for movies that I pretend aren't they're not a part of my Star Wars fandom. I think I said it on, I might have said it off camera when you had me on your Talkalorian show, but my Star Wars fandom is very much the original trilogy movies, the prequel trilogy movies, and then the Legends books. That's how I like to consume and enjoy Star Wars. And I think with a property that has so much stuff, hundreds of books, no matter which way you look, Disney stuff, pre-Disney stuff, doesn't matter, hundreds of books, hours of film material, comic books, video games. There's just so much material that it doesn't make sense to fight over it. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to come on and talk to you about these movies, because we really are two different sides of a coin when it comes to those sequel movies. And even the prequels, like I hold the prequels in very, very high regard. And so it's like, it's nice to have conversations like this where you can say, like, or on one side you can be like, I love the sequels and I know why people don't like them, but I like them a lot. And then I could be like, well, I pretend they don't exist, but I love that you love the sequels. You're just loving what I love too. So it's like, I hope more conversations start to trend this way in Star Wars, because it is something that means so much to people. And a show like this is really cool. I'm really excited to see, who you're able to get on and who, what kind of conversations you have. It's something I'll be watching very closely, because this is something very personal to me, just like it is with you. And I want to hear other people's stories. This is like the perfect type of show to have. It gives you a glimpse into what people think about this trilogy. And hopefully somebody from Star Wars can see an episode of this show and just see what they created and what it means to people. It's a cool idea, and I appreciate you bringing me onto it.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like I said, I love hearing people's stories, because obviously if we just did one episode and I brought more and more people on, it's literally just the same thing. Like, oh, what got you into Star Wars? Oh, I just sat down and watched it one day. Okay, what's your favorite thing about Star Wars? I don't know. The movies are good.
Right.
Favorite character? I don't know. The guy who breathes heavy.
Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite moment? Oh, I don't know. I mean, they're all good in a sense. Okay. Favorite film? That one where the kid's hand gets cut off.
Yeah. Right.
If that was literally like 10 episodes in a row, I'd be like, okay, yeah. The conversations aren't going to be fun. Like, it'd be like doing a ranking of the whole saga. Like, obviously, again, you talked about it earlier, like Rise of Skywalker is your least favorite Star Wars film. For me, it's, I want to say like my number 6, obviously, but for obvious reasons. I mean, if we just had the same ranking, I mean, what's this kind of thing wouldn't even be fun if we just share the same stories, same opinions about everything. Like, what's the point in even doing things like this then?
A world full of diverse people and diverse opinions is a world that I prefer to live in. And I love the fact that people are different than me, and the way that they think is different than me. Some people take it a little too far, and that's when I reserve to pull myself out of that situation. But the people who just like, there's nothing wrong with just liking what you like. And I'm glad that this is a discourse that more and more Star Wars fans are belonging to, at least in my interactions. So experiences like this are always great for me to just, come in and talk about Star Wars. Don't have to worry about about getting removed or about somebody telling me that they're going to show up at my house and do awful things to me, or do awful things to my family or anything like that over liking or not liking something. So this was a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see people share their stories on this show. I'm excited to see who comes next. I'm more excited for their episodes than I was for mine. Like, I was so pumped to come on today, but now I'm like, man, I want somebody else's story now. Like, I've had my piece. Like, I'm so pumped to see what everybody else says on the show, and I hope that this is something that you can keep going, because it's a really special idea. So thank you again for having me.
Oh yeah, man. Like I said too, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being the first guest. I mean, again, everything you've done for the channel, I felt like it was just necessary to have you on, being the first guest, and just being able again to share your Star Wars story with everybody. So,
well, I'm honored, sir, to be the first guest. I almost asked you if you were sure. I was like, you sure? You want me to be the first guest? Okay. All right. Well, I didn't want to push that too far. So I was like, okay, I'll be there. But yeah, I'm even more pumped to see what everybody else says. And again, thank you for having me.
yes, you're very welcome. So, guys, I am going to link all of Connor's social media down below, his Instagram, especially his YouTube channel. Make sure you guys head on over, check out the Not That Bad a Movie podcast. They talk about movies that are below 3 stars, I believe, is how you guys do it.
Yeah, so our show uses Letterboxd as a good gauge of current audience feelings, topical ratings. So we look for movies that are under a 3. We have a pretty convoluted sequel rule in there that allows other movies, which explains our most recent one, Spider-Man 3. But yeah, we focus on movies under 3 on Letterboxd, and one of us on the show tries to tell you why it's not that bad, if not both of us. We each pick our movies and then we discuss them on the show. So we'd love everybody to check it out. I hope your audience would enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it. You guys had a big episode with Cody Leach talking about Hollow Man. So, guys, make sure you definitely go check out that episode. That was a very enjoyable episode to watch. Lots of thoughts on that movie. I watched that I think it was 2 years ago for the first time, and I was like, wow, they did not hold back. They went for it.
No, and when Cody brought it to us, I was like, I didn't think I'd ever heard of it, but it turns out I remembered very vividly the cover for the second movie. I had seen it in Blockbuster as a kid, so now having watched the movie, I'm so glad Cody brought it to us. It was a lot of fun having that conversation. We brought on our friends from the Flopbuster movie show, and they're a lot of fun. We've talked a ton of movies, anything you can think of, from Batman Forever to 2 Star Wars movies. We have episodes on Star Wars, episode 1 and episode 2. So check it out if you're into that. That might be a good intro for everybody, but we do a lot of fun stuff. And I hope you enjoy if you check it out. But if you don't, just keep supporting Austin's channel. It's a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for the first episode of Tales of a Star Wars Fan. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure if you guys do want to be on the show, do not be scared. Definitely let me know down in the comments section below. We will get something going because, again, I just love these Star Wars conversations. I want to hear your guys' story. I want to share your guys' story. So definitely do not be afraid to ask. And if you guys want to come on, we'll make it happen. So with that being said, you guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.